Today we're going to be talking about the comparisons between the Glock 42 and the Glock 43 and ultimately help answer the question a number of people have, which is the better pistol for you. Now, when you look at the two different models, there's obviously some first striking differences. One is the Glock 42 is the first entrance before the 43 in the single stack market for Glock. It is their 380 model that they originally came out with, which is a smaller cartridge, of course, than the 9mm model, which is the Glock 43. Because of that, many people bought the 42 in expectation of eventually buying the 9mm version, which is the Glock 43, which is what we have both on the table here today. So the first thing we want to discuss real quick is the utility between the two. The first thing has to do with the ammunition. So when you compare the two different types of ammunition between the two, the 380 is basically just a neck down version of the 9mm. It has less power. It is a smaller grain bullet typically, and the penetration, the power and performance is less with the 380 than the 9mm. Most handguns are underpowered to begin with, and the 380 loads are really at the lower end of the spectrum as far as performance that you would receive out of a specific type of bullet. So part of this is what your utility of use is going to be for the pistol. If it's pure self-defense, again, this is one of the lowest ranges you would want to go, even with really good ammunition. The 9mm, however, has become better and better over the years, especially with the improvements in the ammunition that they have out today. So the most common types of ammunition I typically recommend that people carry, whether it be a 9mm or 380, or the Federal Premium law enforcement. The HST models are actually very good for both the 9mm as well as the 380. Underwood Ammo also makes the same thing. They make the 380 plus Ps as well as the Spear Gold Dots, which are what the police had carried for a long time. Again, in 9mm and 380. Both are good rounds that you could fire any one of these out of the pistols. They will perform well. But again, you're giving up a lot just by nature of the 380 compared to the 9mm, but at the same token, both are relatively underpowered to begin with. A lot of it has to come down to shot placement. I don't mind having a smaller round if I can get really good shot placement out of the pistol that I'm carrying, and vice versa. So now, as far as the actual size comparisons of the two pistols, when you look at them side by side, in many respects, the size differences seem very slim. But when it comes to concealed carry, there is a considerable difference, both on the size, the weight, etc. So they're a little bit shorter on the 42 as well as on the grip side. And obviously the 9mm, the 43, is just a little bit larger to handle the larger caliber 9mm load. Now, when we look at the weight of the two pistols, so in this case, let's start with the 42, which is the 380 model. In this case, it is about 12 pounds, or 12 ounces empty, and then loaded it comes in right at about 1 pound. Comparing that, for example, to the Glock 43, that comes in at 1 pound empty, and then loaded comes in at about 1 pound 5 ounces. You're talking a difference of about 5 ounces between the two pistols. And most of that weight is in the slide to be able to handle the performance of the 9mm cartridge as opposed to the 380. You also have some other options on the magazines. The Glock 43 comes with these finger grooves, which I personally like on the 43 when I fire it, just because the 9mm, especially with the loads that I use, are pretty powerful. So it gives me a little bit more control. If you have the same problem, if you have a smaller hand on the 42, you can also get these plates or these finger grooves, and they will be able to pop in. You also have the ability to extend the magazine capacities of both of these. Both of them come with standard magazine capacities of 6 rounds. So depending upon how you carry, if you carry in battery, this means you have 6 plus 1, so you have 7 rounds. If you carry out of battery, you have the 6 rounds in the magazine. However, there are companies out there, including a company called MagGuts, which is what I use, where they give you aftermarket followers as well as new springs to put in the stock magazines to be able to add an additional round. So instead of 6, you would have 7 rounds in each one of these magazines. I have that in here on the 42 magazine, but I've yet to put it into the 43 magazine. But it does give you that extra round in case you want to add that capacity to the pistol itself. Now, as far as performance of the pistols and what I like, personally for me, I have about an average size hand. For that reason alone, just the slim difference in size of the actual grip itself makes a considerable difference in performance for me. I shoot a lot better with the 43, as I'll show you in a moment, than I do with the 42. And also, I would tell you that if you fired larger framed Glocks in the past, as anything from a 1917 on up, you might not have liked, for example, the recoil, the feel in your hand. Don't make that judgment about this smaller single frame or single stack Glocks, because in many respects they will feel a lot different in your hand than what a double stack magazine. So if they were uncomfortable to fire a Glock in the past in the double stack magazines, try the single stacks before you start making judgments, because I know a lot of people that these feel absolutely perfect in their hand and they don't like the double stacks. So again, it gives you a little bit of an advantage there as well. Now, as far as the actual performance of the two pistols, at least for myself, I've got some target comparisons to show you how each of these performed, at least for me. In this case, I'm going to start with the Glock 42. So with the Glock 42, which is a 380 model, shot at 30 and 50 feet, different groupings for the 42. And then of course I took it out to 70 feet and then 20 feet one-handed. And again, they start naturally when you move out. I would expect them to open up, but these are pretty open groups for me compared to what I normally would shoot, especially when it comes to, in comparison to the Glock 43. So the Glock 43, which is the 9mm version, side by side with the Glock 42. So here's the 42 groups and the 43. You can see that my performance, at least for me when I was shooting the 43, is considerably better than the Glock 42. And if I take that out even farther to 70 feet, again, I have on this side the 42 performance, and this side the 43 performance. Again, you can see much tighter groups out of my Glock 43, both from distance as well as one-handed. So the general performance that I receive for the Glock 43, at least from an accuracy perspective, is considerably better than the Glock 42. Now, will that be the case for you? It's hard to tell. You have to fire both of the pistols to know what's right for you. Again, I have average size hands. If I had smaller hands, maybe, or if I was a female, you know, this grip in the 42 might actually be right for me. But in my case, I know that the Glock 43 fits me a lot better, and I think that's what has a lot to do with the difference between the groupings you're seeing here between the 43 and the 42. And mind you, the 43 has a little bit more recoil than the 42 as well, because it's shooting a 9mm round. But the point is, if I'm shooting smaller rounds to begin with, I want to have accuracy with those rounds. A round to the head will stop a gunfight quickly, no matter what that round is. And I know for the 43, I'm actually able to put those rounds a lot tighter than I am with the 42. So in comparison from an accuracy perspective, not only do I get better ballistic performance out of the 43, but I also get better accuracy performance as well. But again, my recommendation would be is if you've never fired either one of these and you're considering the two, I would fire both and do the comparisons like I've done, see how they feel in your hands when you fire them, to determine which one's right for you. The 42 is a little bit, as we saw, it's about 5 ounces lighter, and it's a tad bit smaller. So depending upon where you're carrying it, there's an advantage on the 42 over the 43, but the 43 carries a 9mm, carries the same amount of rounds, and depending upon how you perform, at least in my case, I perform a lot better from an accuracy perspective with the 43 over the 42. So it really is up to you. Both of them are excellent pistols. I carry this pistol for a reason. It works for me. I get the accuracy out of it, and the 9mm is the lowest round that I want to actually carry in order to be able to defend myself. So if you like this video, please like us and subscribe on YouTube, and thanks for watching.